I don't think you understand how this works, Marlene. We need your client contacts. Today. That was the moment. The moment my 15 years at a freight company in Dallas collapsed into one cold demand. No farewell lunch, no thank you email. Just my boss Harold, once friendly over office happy hours, now tapping his pen across the glass table like he was waiting for a pizza delivery. And behind him, that smug new VP Evan 35 straight from some MBA factory arms, crossed teeth gleaming. He hadn't closed a single deal, but he had just closed my career. They called it restructure. We're moving in a new direction, Harold muttered, eyes avoiding mine. I didn't ask where. I knew. Straight off a cliff hidden under slick PowerPoint slides. On my laptop screen, file transfer prompt. All client contacts, Harold repeated. Upload them. Keep this clean, like bleach over a crime scene. My hand didn't shake. I had spent the last 2 months, evenings and weekends, preparing for this exact ambush. I dragged the file Marlene client handover final.xlsx. It looked harmless. Names, numbers, emails. The skeleton of my client list. But not its heartbeat. Not the trust I built through midnight calls, anniversary cards, or favors no CRM could ever track. Harold didn't know I had already bought a domain. Didn't know I'd hired a designer, built a consulting site, or that my email signature already carried my new brand. And he definitely didn't know that this spreadsheet, the one they were salivating over, held a tiny hidden detail. Nothing flashy, just a neat line in the footer of the last tab. For consulting inquiries, www.marlenestoneconsulting.com. Call it a signature. Call it a Trojan horse. I call it leverage. I stood up slowly, sliding my chair back with the same care I once gave to client onboarding. No shouting, no theatrics. Just a nod. Thanks for the opportunity, I said. It sounded calm, almost neutral. But under the surface, I was vibrating with something sharper. Not anger. Calculation. Evan smirked like a man who thought he'd won a poker hand, never realizing I was playing chess 2 tables away. Best of luck, he said. You'll land on your feet. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My feet were already planted and they were facing forward. By the time I passed the front desk, my badge already deactivated. My phone buzzed. An email. Subject reconsulting. From a senior manager at one of our biggest clients. I didn't need to open it to know what it meant. The link had worked. That evening, I poured a glass of red wine on my porch and watched the Texas sun bleed into the horizon. My laptop hummed beside me. Site traffic spiked 6 visitors in the last hour, 3 clicks on book a call. 15 years of free advice. 15 years of late-night calls. 0 extra pay. 15 years of being called part of the furniture by executives who never once took me to lunch. Not anymore. Another email pinged. Hey, saw your link. Can we talk? I didn't cheer. Didn't fist pump. I just sipped my wine and blocked off hours in my calendar. Let them think they'd fired me. Let them cling to their spreadsheet. I had something better. I had gravity. By the next day, it was like I'd never existed. Slack account gone. Name erased from the roster. My polished email signature replaced with a canned reach out to our team line that screamed, "You're not a person, you're a ticket." No goodbye thread. No thanks. Just silence. Cold, corporate silence. And in that vacuum, Evan strutted in, already bragging he'd streamlined the legacy accounts I'd spent 15 years cultivating like a bonsai tree. In the team meeting after my ouster one, I obviously wasn't invited to. Evan reportedly said, "Now that we're modernizing the pipeline, we can start focusing on scalable touchpoints." Scalable touchpoints. That's what he called my relationships. My people. The ones who sent me Christmas cards. The ones who invited me to their weddings. The ones who once called me during a hurricane because I was the only person they trusted to reroute a shipment. Now they were touch points. That evening, I sat barefoot on my porch, a throw blanket over my legs, listening to cicadas hum. My laptop glowed beside me, open to my new site. Simple layout, clean font, tagline relationships first. Logistics strategy built on trust, not buzzwords. I refreshed the analytics page. 21 visitors, 6 traced back to my old company, 1 ping from the headquarters of our biggest client, another from a Phoenix satellite office. The cracks were already forming. My inbox chimed. Subject saw your link, can we talk? The sender was a VP from Freightalytics, a longtime client who once called me their secret weapon in meetings. His note was polite, careful, asking about advisory support during their transition. I didn't reply right away. I let it sit, a small act of control. Instead, I stretched, stood, and walked inside to fix dinner: rosemary chicken with asparagus. Simple, sharp, unapologetically healthy. Not the microwave sludge I used to gulp between Zoom calls while faking laughter at Harold's recycled golf jokes. As the chicken sizzled, my mind drifted forward. I imagined Evan clicking through the CRM, treating my old accounts like files in a cabinet. He'd see notes, follow-ups, reminders. He'd think it was just data. But he'd never hear the pauses in a client's voice, never catch the instinct that told me churn was coming before they even knew it. By 10 p.m., my site had 47 visitors, 4 consultation requests, 1 from a company I didn't even recognize, but I knew they'd been watching my LinkedIn stories. The site traffic chart looked like a heartbeat, steady climbing. I closed my laptop and leaned back, eyes shut. Wounded pride still simmered, but something colder had taken its place. Something cleaner. I didn't need recognition. I didn't need cake in the break room or a farewell card signed by people who barely knew me. I had silence. And inside that silence, I had momentum. The only sound I wanted was the soft ding of another booked call. Meanwhile, back at the office, things grew oddly quiet, not peaceful, eerie like the stillness before a storm. Meetings that had run for years simply vanished. Long-standing calls evaporated with a polite, "Let's circle back after the holidays," or worse, no reply at all. Account managers stared at empty Zoom windows like kids waiting for rides that never came. One rep, Allison, bright-eyed, fresh out of college, finally typed into Slack, "Anyone else seeing client drop-offs? Grand Freight canceled my Wednesday call 3 times in a row. They've never done that before." Evan replied with a GIF. A GIF. Michael Scott holding a coffee mug. "It's fine." Then he typed, "Seasonal slowdown. Totally normal. Q3 always lags. If you've been with me this far, don't just leave it here. Hit subscribe and come with me into the next chapter, where the story only gets sharper, bolder, and more real." I nearly laughed over my morning coffee. Nothing about this was normal. Grand Freight had been my client for 9 years. I knew their rhythms like my own heartbeat. They never ghosted unless they were sending a message. My phone buzzed. Calendar alert. First consult of the week. I opened my prep doc, a simple reminder: listen more than you talk. They already know your value. On Zoom, a woman in her late 40s looked drained. A marketing director I'd supported through rebrands and budget cuts. After small talk, she sighed. "Things don't feel the same since you left." I didn't gloat. Didn't smirk. I just listened. "We've got a new contact from your old firm," the client said, weariness in her voice. "Some guy claims he's revamping strategic alignment. But he had no idea what we meant when we mentioned pivot docking delay variants." I raised an eyebrow. "That's one of your Q3 flags, right from the Pacific Corridor." She exhaled like someone finally unclenching. "Exactly. We didn't talk about contracts. Or NDAs. It wasn't that kind of call. It was me doing what I'd always done, listening, asking sharp questions, taking clean notes." When the call ended, my invoice was already prepped. No pitch, no proposal. I didn't need to. 3 calls booked this week, more penciled for the next. Meanwhile, back at the firm, Evan's prized spreadsheet was starting to look dusty. Names, numbers, titles, all there, but replies, silence. Melissa's email was polite, too polite. She even admitted colleagues like Brian keep saying clients still ask for you. They're realizing you weren't just the process, you were the trust. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I refreshed my analytics. 7 site visits in the last hour. 2 from unknown companies. 1 from a Fortune 100 logistics firm. At the office, Evan doubled down, sending Motivation Monday emails with lines like, "It's not about the churn, it's about the learn," and "Objections are opportunities." I didn't object. I didn't chase. I just kept listening and billing. But the storm kept building. The churn dashboard lit up, not yellow, not orange-red, blistering, undeniable red. Quarterly retention reviews had once been routine. This time, the chart didn't slope neatly. It plunged. 2 of their biggest accounts, Freightalytics and Agron, flagged non-responsive. Renewal calls postponed. Emails unanswered. Free fall. 1 client even ghosted mid-contract with 2 months left. The new customer success manager, fresh out of business school, tossing around synergy like it was seasoning, told the CEO, "We're seeing a shift in communication patterns." The CEO leaned forward. "Define shift." The kid stammered. Less engagement. Less responsiveness." "Are they leaving?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Evan jumped in, trying to pivot. "It's just a hiccup in the pipeline strategy. We're centralizing comms so there's short-term friction, but long-term." "Stop," the CEO cut him off. "When's the last time you actually heard from Agron?" Silence. "Then I believe they're evaluating options." Translation gone. The next morning, I was in my kitchen making French toast when the email came in. Subject line, "Quick favor." From Melissa Gentry, Senior Director of Marketing and Comms at my old firm. The tone was polite. Too polite. That strained artificial calm when a ship is already sinking. "Hey Marlene, hope you're doing well. Quick question, we're navigating a bit of turbulence with client transitions. Totally expected with org changes, of course. Your name keeps coming up as someone they still feel connected to. Would you be open to helping out on a short-term basis just to ensure a smooth handoff and maybe calm the waters?" I read it twice. Then I opened my branded rate sheet template. No calls, no Zooms, no happy to help, just a PDF. Marlene Stone Consulting, hourly rate $500. Minimum engagement 8 hours. Upfront payment only. No discounts, no exceptions. Scope included client transition support, account communication, restoration, retention strategy. No warm regards. Just, "Let me know if you'd like to proceed." I clicked send, flipped my French toast, and poured another coffee. Minutes later, my site pinged. Someone inside their network had downloaded my rate sheet 3 times. Then Melissa replied, "Thanks, Marlene, passing this along internally. We'll follow up shortly." They were choking on the price, trying to act cool. But I knew the game. I'd seen them play this game for years. Vendors squeezed partners. Underpaid employees reminded they should feel lucky to be here. But now, they were the ones circling back, scrambling to make the math work. I opened my calendar and blocked the next 2 Fridays preemptively. Because if they booked me, I knew they'd try to cram every deliverable into one sprint. I wouldn't let them. My rules, my timeline, my terms. At the office, Evan paced outside the CEO's door with a printed copy of my rate sheet, muttering about ridiculous overhead and dangerous precedent. The CEO didn't even look up from his tablet. He just asked, "Is she available?" Evan had no answer. Meanwhile, I refreshed my inbox. A new inquiry had arrived from a logistics SaaS firm I'd never worked with, referred by Freightalytics. I marked it for follow-up. No rush. I wasn't chasing work anymore. Work was finding me. Back at their office, the infamous spreadsheet made its 5th appearance in 6 days. Evan slapped it on the table like scripture, color-coded tabs, filters, notes in tiny cells explaining who's who and how to reach them. "Everything we need is right here," he insisted, jabbing at a column labeled "Last Contact Date." No one touched it. The CEO leaned back, arms folded. The CFO stared at the screen like she wanted it to confess. Evan pressed harder. These relationships aren't proprietary. Clients aren't loyal to a person, they're loyal to the platform. Marlene was just the delivery mechanism. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Finally, the CFO spoke measured. 2 clients called me this week, Evan. Not sales me. They didn't ask about their new rep. They asked if Marlene was okay. Evan gripped his pen tighter. She was nice to them, he muttered like kindness was a flaw. She got results, the CEO corrected flatly. Evan clicked the top of his pen once, twice, then forced a smile. Look, I'm not saying Marlene didn't have her strengths, but we're not rebuilding a cult of personality here, we're rebuilding a system. The system is what scales. You're losing contracts, the CFO said sharply. We're repositioning. Some churn is normal. Q3 softens, and I've got 3 new prospect meetings next week. Are those renewals or cold outreach? Evan hesitated. The CEO leaned forward. We're not asking if Marlene was nice. We're asking if she was necessary. Before Evan could answer, a voice broke through the conference line. A client recording played once before echoed in the boardroom. I don't know who this new guy is, but Marlene used to. No, I didn't even have to explain. She'd fix it before we noticed. What happened to her anyway? Click. Silence. Evan's jaw tightened. I'm telling you, he said weakly. The data is all there. The CEO stood staring out the glass wall at the street below. No one's arguing about the data, Evan. We're arguing about the delta between a name and a number someone actually wants to call. In my home office, I wasn't thinking about any of this. I was reviewing a client deck for a startup in Indianapolis, sipping cold brew from a mason jar, updating my onboarding template. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I ignored it. Minutes later, a voicemail. Hey, this is Brian from your old firm. Jordan's pushing a big QBR next weekend. He doesn't know the clients like you do. Just thought I'd ask if maybe you'd be open to a quick consult. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My silence was louder than any answer. At 9:14 a.m., sharp, their renewals inbox lit up like a guillotine. Contract termination notice. Effective end of month. Signed, Riley Denton, Director of Operations, Corespand Freight. Corespand Freight. Their oldest logistics client. The one I personally onboarded back in the Series A days. The one I sent handwritten Christmas notes to every year, addressed to Riley's assistant because I remembered her kid was allergic to peppermint. A 6-figure account. 11-year relationship. Gone in a 2-paragraph email. Evan saw it first. Forwarded it to the CEO with a smug note. Looks like a pivot. Not unexpected. He even attached a LinkedIn screenshot of Corespand's job postings in digital transformation. His spin came fast. They're building in-house. They'd have left anyway. But the CFO wasn't buying it. She pulled up vendor filings. Corespand wasn't going internal. They were going elsewhere. 2 hours later, she had proof, my consulting site. Right there on my client ticker, now working with Corespand Freight. No flash, no boasting. Just clean, factual text in my brand font. Above it, my updated schedule every weekday booked for 2 weeks. Below it, a fresh testimonial, almost certainly from Corespand. Marlene sees around corners. She doesn't just solve problems, she prevents them. Working with her feels like breathing again. Evan stood behind the CEO as he scrolled. My site was too polished. No fluff, no jargon. Just clarity, control, credibility. I wasn't freelancing. I was thriving. We should send a counteroffer, Evan muttered. Try to win them back. The CEO didn't answer. He just clicked my book a strategy session link. The form loaded, rate 500 hour, 8-hour minimum. Next availability 13 business days out. Prepay required? Evan scoffed. Ridiculous. Who pays that for logistics advice? The CFO spun in her chair. Apparently, Corespand does. Evan's jaw tightened. She didn't even pitch them. She just existed. The CEO finished. That's called brand equity. She earned it. Back at my place, I was mid-call with a new client. A European firm expanding into the Midwest looking for a strategist who understood both relationships and infrastructure. I didn't mention my old employer. I didn't need to. I asked sharp questions, took clean notes, set expectations with precision. They didn't haggle. The invoice was paid before the call ended. Afterward, I checked my site analytics up 34% in 48 hours. One testimonial pending approval. And under recent clients, core spanned Freight Parcel Hub Bridge Logic's Midwest, every one of them former warm leads from my old pipeline. My phone buzzed. A text from my designer. Want me to add a waitlist badge? You're nearly full for the month. I stared at the screen. Not smiling, not glowing. Just breathing deeply for the first time in years. The company I gave 15 years to was unraveling in boardrooms chasing spreadsheets to fix a trust deficit. Meanwhile, I was sipping black tea, working at my own pace with my own clients at my own price. I wasn't someone's asset anymore. I was the value. Then came a booking, J. Davis. No company listed, no LinkedIn link. Just a burner Gmail and a prepaid deposit $4,000 wired instantly. I almost declined. My plate was full and mystery consults rarely end well. But the phrasing in the intake form triggered an old nerve client re-engagement strategy friction around legacy transitions. I'd heard those words before from Evan's deck his second week at the firm right before he shoved me out. So I accepted. Scheduled the Zoom. Let him come to me this time. Tuesday, 10 a.m. sharp. The camera clicked on. I was already there. Hair pulled back blue, blouse clean whiteboard and bookshelf behind me. Precise. Controlled. 2 seconds later, Evan appeared, flustered, unready. His collar wrinkled jaw tight. "Hi, Marlene," he said, forcing a smile that looked like it had been designed by committee. I tilted my head. "You booked through my site?" I asked. He paused. "Yeah. Didn't think you'd take the call if it had my name on it." "You're correct." Evan shifted in his chair. "Well, here we are." I clicked my pen. "Let's get started." For the first 10 minutes, I barely spoke. I let him ramble: pipeline degradation, client attrition, renewal friction. Jargon stacked on jargon, but none of it landed. Finally, I raised a hand. "You're not bleeding from friction, Evan. You're bleeding because you never built anything sticky. You treated relationships like QR codes, something you could just scan and duplicate." He opened his mouth. I kept going. "You thought the spreadsheet was the asset." "It wasn't. The asset was trust, the part you can't sort by column." He swallowed hard. "You're clearly doing well. But maybe we could structure something more flexible. Say a rolling contract or reduced rate for ongoing advisement." I smiled. "Not wide. Just enough. My rates are not flexible." He blinked. "We're still technically your former employer." "No. You're a former employer who's now a client," I interrupted calmly. "The distinction matters." He exhaled. I could see the truth land heavier than anything I'd said. "Look." He tried again. "We've got churn. Serious churn. If we bring you back, maybe part-time, even off books. I don't work off books, I cut in. And I don't come back. I consult." I typed case notes as he spoke. No emotion, just process. He stared at me, unsure what he'd expected. Contrition, nostalgia, gratitude. What he got was a wall of steel wrapped in a silk voice. I leaned forward. "Evan, here's the truth. They never trusted you. They tolerated you because I softened the edge. You fired the insulation. Now they're feeling the cold." He had no reply. I waited, then added evenly, "If you'd like to extend this consult rebook at the same rate, I'm full through the month, but I'll hold a Wednesday cancellation slot." Click. Window minimized. Invoice sent. I leaned back in my chair. No champagne, no celebration. Just calm. It wasn't revenge. It was valuation. And I had finally set mine. Meanwhile, the boardroom downtown was silent enough to hear the HVAC hum. 7 around the table, 4 on screen, and 1 pacing CEO Mark Holler. He'd just gotten off a brutal call with Corespand's COO. The words still echoed. We're not interested in renegotiating with middlemen. If Marlene's not in the room, we're not renewing. Now Mark stood red-faced, flipping through the Q3 forecast packet like it had personally betrayed him. Let me get this straight, he said, voice shaking under control. We lost Freightalytics Agron Parcel Hub, and now Corespand in under 6 weeks. Evan shifted in his seat collar, damp. He grabbed the spreadsheet again like it was a shield. We have the contacts. They were transferred before Marlene left. I personally oversaw it. The CFO didn't look up, just pressed her temple between 2 fingers. Mark turned the big screen toward them. A bookmarked Chrome tab. My consulting site. Clean layout. Case studies. Logos of now former clients spinning in a discrete carousel. Every detail smooth polished, like I'd invested in real UX instead of empty hype. He pointed at current openings. Every slot grayed out. The next available booking 17 business days away. Rate 500 hour. Minimum 8 hours. Upfront only. No exceptions. Mark jabbed a finger at the screen. That is what we're competing with. Not a slide deck, not a spreadsheet, a reputation. And you fired it. Evan straightened. With respect, Mark, we didn't fire her. We restructured. We optimized for growth. Marlene's methods weren't scalable. Mark slammed the folder shut. She was the only person our clients liked. Do you get that they liked her? Not tolerated. Not CC'd politely. Liked. I could walk into a room and calm a storm. Evan walked in and sparked 5 more. That's not fair, he muttered, voice tight. Mark just stared at him, then at the rest of the board. No one spoke. Not product, not partnerships, not even legal. Finally, Mark said it slowly, each word sharp. You were so eager to make your mark you erased the only signature we had. Evan's eyes darted back to the screen to my rate. He scoffed. It's extortion. No consultant is worth that. The CFO cut in. Then explain why Freightalytics booked her twice in a row, 2 full packages paid up front, and raved about the results. Evan opened his mouth, then closed it. Mark crossed his arms. Book a damn call, right now, with your real name. Pay the rate, and apologize twice. She's not our employee anymore. She's our only shot at retention. The silence dropped like a sandbag. Mark finally sat calmer now. And next time you gut something irreplaceable, remember the difference between a contact list and a lifeline. Across town, I wasn't in a boardroom. I was hiking, phone off, calendar locked. The world I'd left behind was unraveling while I moved through the trees with sunlight on my face and no Slack messages in sight. I hadn't lifted a finger, and still I was the only name in their room that mattered. At 8:47 a.m., the wire hit my account. Subject Marlene Stone Consulting Agreement. Amount $12,000. Memo Client Transition Audit, plus Retention Advisory Phase Y. They hadn't just booked the minimum 8 hours they locked in a 24-hour block upfront 3 times my base package. I didn't fist pump. Didn't cheer. Just nodded once, archived the receipt and closed my banking tab. I'd been clear 24 hours to pay. No follow-ups, no reminders. If they wanted me, they'd follow instructions. And they had. At 9:00 sharp, my Zoom lobby lit up. Mark Holler, CEO, Christina Nguyen, CFO, Evan, VP Sales. I let them wait 30 seconds. Then clicked Admit All. 3 faces appeared on my screen. Tight smiles, tighter collars. Evan looked like he hadn't slept in a week. I looked calm. Hair tied back. Same plain background. Same stillness. No performance. No theatrics. I was the room. Good morning, I said, offering a small smile. Not cruel, not smug, just steady like someone who owed them nothing. Mark spoke first. Marlene, thanks for making the time. We're glad to be working with you again. I nodded. Let's begin. I pulled up my deck, not theirs. Slide 1, real-time diagnostic of client sentiment. LinkedIn chatter email, metadata, Slack threads I still had from ex-clients who looped me in. Slide 2, projected Q4 churn if I stayed external. 34%. Slide 3, projected churn with strategic re-engagement. 6%. Evan shifted. I didn't look at him. This week, I'll be interviewing your Tier 1 clients. I'll need unfiltered CRM notes, sales recordings, and documentation from your last 6 renewals. If any of that's missing, churn will hit faster than you can spin it. Mark nodded immediately. You'll have it. I flipped through the bullet points with surgical efficiency. This wasn't my company anymore. This wasn't my team. This was a billable environment. At minute 17, Evan broke in. What would you say we missed philosophically? I paused, not for effect, but to let silence take space. Finally, I looked at him. You believed relationships were data points. That loyalty could be templated. That trust lives in a spreadsheet. Click final slide. My logo, a single line beneath it. The difference between a client and a contract is a person. Evan went quiet. Mark exhaled. Christina said softly, "You were always clear about that." I smiled once more. I wasn't here to settle scores, not here to lecture. I was here to execute. I closed with action items, deadlines, and 3 follow-up slots already booked. The CEO thanked me. The CFO lingered, asking if I had bandwidth for another onboarding project. I did the work at market rate. No discounts. As the Zoom window faded, I leaned back, sipped water, and glanced at my wall calendar, fully booked through the quarter. 4 major clients secured, 2 more waiting, and 1 square circled in red. Ellis Fai's final review. The company I helped build once tried to erase me. Now they paid me to fix what they'd broken. I hadn't burned their house down. I built my own next door and sold them a key. I want to take a moment and speak to you, not as a consultant, not as someone who walked away from a broken system, but as a person who had to decide my value when others tried to discount it. If this story resonated with you, I need you to stand with me. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in my shoes? What would you say to someone who tried to erase years of your work and relationships? Every voice matters, and when you share yours, you remind people like me, and maybe even yourself, that no one walks this path alone. Here's my advice. Never wait for someone else to validate your worth. Don't hand over the keys to your effort, your time, or your identity to a company that would replace you tomorrow. Build your value outside of their walls, even if it's just in small steps, skills, networks, or side projects. Because when the moment comes, and it will, you'll need to be ready to stand on your own terms. That's not revenge. That's freedom. And if you want to keep walking this journey with me, hit subscribe. Let's face the next chapter together.